Welcome to the True Demon Lord show. I am the True Demon Lord, Franco, and today we're going to be starting a new series, something I've been wanting to do for a while, just not really got round to sorting the logistics of it, sorting the PowerPoints out, and just trying to think of how I approached it. And that'll be looking at matchup focuses for demons. So we're going to look at different factions and how that matchup goes, just trying to give you some advice, running down on the factions. We're not going to go deep into those factions. We are basically going to talk about what I think is probably the better detachments that go against us, or the more common ones that you'll see, and some more likely to run into, and look at it from completely from the point of view of a demon player. And so, you know, while I'm also talking about the faction and giving you a rundown of it, kind of their weaknesses, their strengths ish. Obviously, the more deep part of it will be demons. So if you're a Death Guard player, this is going to be a bit skewed. It's not going to be massively helpful for yourself, but you might learn something from it, I guess. But yes, if you're a demon player and you're struggling to play into certain factions, then this series is basically for you. Or if just in general you want to have a better understanding going into all the factions, and again, this series is for you. So we are going to start with personally my least favorite faction in the entire game, and that is Adeptus Custodes. So I don't like Custodes. I've had many negative games into them, mostly due to just them as a faction. Sometimes Custodes players, they can be a little bit douchey. Joking, of course, mostly joking. But yes, so we are going to be looking at Custodes. Because again, they're an army I just feel like I'm always thinking about when I'm building lists and I'm going to events. But we will obviously look at other more popular factions the deeper we get into this series. And I'm going to try and stick mostly with Codex factions for now. And this could definitely change again if we get, if we get any updates in the future. So yeah, we'll see. But we're going to start it. We're going to go into it. And basically give you the rundown on the matchup in general. So before we get into the rest of the video, please leave a like and subscribe if you like the content. It is free and it helps the channel out massively and allows us to continue to grow and get reached out to more and more of our fellow demon players, which is what this channel is all about. And then if you really love the content and you want to support further, then consider becoming a true denizen with a YouTube membership where you'll get extra content, access to the member exclusive Discord where you'll have more of a say and be able to vote in polls on content that we create here on the channel, as well as member exclusive videos, which will be a lot more of a deep dive tactical analysis, kind of a coaching style, I guess. So yes. So let's get into it and talk about these nasty golden boys. So Adeptus Custodes, let's just give you the rundown on the faction itself. Generally quite elite. Not the highest model counts. Their units sit anywhere between they can get like units of 1s and 2s with Terminators, but then they can be 4s and 5s with their more standard like Custodian Guard and Wardens. And because of that, they have a pretty decent defensive stats. So their standard defensive profile generally is about toughness 6, 3 wounds, 2 up armor and 4 up invulnerable save. So similar to us, we're rocking in ones everywhere. They generally are. They aren't just Custodes. This is also filled with. They're called Anathema Cyclana units, which are basically Sisters of Silence. And so they are basically a Sister of Battle profile, armor save, and all that kind of stuff, and the rhinos they get. But again, mostly you're going to be seeing a lot of Custodes, which are on these type of profiles. And because of that, they have a lot of damage to combat and shooting. Because, most Custodes are armed with a whatever the spear is called, which would be strength 7 -2 damage in combat, generally about 5 attacks, which is not a bad little profile. And then, of course, they're shooting. Again, those spears have 2 strength 4 -1/2 damage shots at 24-inch range. I think even the swords are just less range, at 12-inch range, but strength 4 -1/2 damage as well. So a lot of 2 damage rocking about. And again, weapon skill, ballistic skill 2+, mostly across the board on anything in gold armor. So they hit very good as well. And again, anything in gold armor is generally OC2 or 3 with certain upgrades like a Vexilla. So yeah, low model count, but pretty consistent middle of the road, like not middle of the road, fairly decent damage. You know, they're not sitting massively high, but they're not sitting low. They're in that middle bit, and they've got good OC to back up their lack of numbers. And also, like we said, pretty tough. So their army rule is the martial Katah. So basically, when a unit is selected to fight in combat, they can choose to either go with sustained hits 1 or lethal hits. That's very, very good against us because if they're going into pink horrors, which is a unit that prides itself on being a tar pit, it's all about just tanking on 4-up invulns and then splitting when they die, if the unit isn't wiped out. Well, these guys have 5 attacks each in combat. They hit on 2s. They're going to have sustained hits 1. So, yeah, and they're going to be winning on 2s against pink horrors, so they're going to be putting out a lot of damage. Even our plague bearers, again, they're going to be winning on 3s. They're killing a plague bearer for every failed save. So sustained hits 1 is very good against all that kind of stuff. Fiends, blood crushers, etc. But then also, if they're going into our greater demons, lethal hits. We do not like lethal hits whatsoever. And just being able to have that many strength 7 2 damage attacks, lethal hits on 6s, wounding on 5s. Yeah, it hurts. So yes, something to definitely watch out for. Now, key units, probably their best unit, a unit you will see generally in 2 to 3s, generally 3s, especially before in the index, but you still see them now. My few games against Custodes since the Codex has come out, I think I've played against 4 of them, and I think only 1 of them had 2 units, the rest of them still have 3 units. They're still good. And we're going to talk about not just the unit itself, but the best character to really attach to them. So we've got Wardens. They've got that Custodian profile, tough to 6, 3 wounds, 2 armor, 4+ in 1. And then, they're going to be, so they've got a rule whenever they have a character attached to the unit. Anytime an attack targets them, if the strength is higher than their toughness value, so if it's strength 7 or better, it will be minus on the wound. This is quite nasty. Because again, our big guys, mostly like if it's Be'lakor, Chilaxi, Bloodthirster, Scarbrand, Soul Grinders, they're going to be winning on 3s now. If it's Keepers and Grand Clean ones, they're going to be winning on 4s. That's not good. That is not good. But there is a counter around that, and that's killing the characters. So if you, for example, an example I have recently, I charged Chilaxi and a Keeper into this unit. And I use Chilaxi to pick the character out and then kill another couple guys, and then the Keeper could then just rock her way through, not having to worry about the -1 to wound. So there is a way around it, using the Fat Boy as well to minus toughness on the unit, so making them toughness 5, if you're able to, and then pick the character out. Now means the Keeper will be winning on 3s with everything, which is quite nice. And then 1 phase per game, this unit can have a 4+ in 4+ Feel No Pain, which is what makes them really, really annoying. So, I find against us at least, obviously other armies will be different. Tau, for example, you'll see that in the shooting phase. For us, because our shooting isn't massively prevalent, if you've got a lot of change and Soul Grinders, then now you start to cause them to think for decisions. But generally, most lists are going to be, it's going to be happening in the fight phase. So again, a way I always try to is just label them as much with whatever shooting I have, gang up on a unit at a time. We'll get into that soon in a bit. But again, in that same scenario I had, I used the Be'lakor, the Chilaxi, and the Keeper to kind of hit a unit. Shotted it with Chilaxi's Whip and Purveyne, the Keeper's Phantasmagoria, and Be'lakor's Betraying Shades. Done as much damage as I could, and then went in and finished it off in combat. Because again, they can only get that 4-up Feel No Pain in 1 phase of the game. The detachment they were using did have a 4+ Feel No Pain strat against mortals, so they did have a counter a little bit to my dev wounds from all those shooting attacks, but still. Then these guys are rocking, if they're running the spears, 5 attacks, a strength 7 -2/2 damage. That's a pretty nasty profile. Or they can take a axe, which will be 4 attacks or less attacks, but strength 9 -1 D3 damage, flat 3 damage. Sorry. Now, of course, against us, we don't care about the AP. But you do, I tend to see mostly spears. It's not often you see the axes. Maybe if they're running 3 units, you might have 1 unit with an axe, because they obviously are thinking about the AP. And since we're only really one matchup that doesn't really care about the AP, they can't really just tailor it to us. But that flat 3 damage is also quite nasty. And we'll see a combination in a bit that makes it even worse. They are obviously OC2 per Warden, but if there is a Vexilla in the unit, which again, why they wouldn't take a Vexilla, I don't know, makes them OC3. I think it replaces the spear. I could be wrong, but I think it might replace the spear, or the weapon. So that might be a reason why, but it's still very good. And then if they have the spear, I think the spear and the axe have the same shooting attack. So it's 2 shots, 24-inch range, strength 4, -1, 2 damage, assault. So they can still put out some damage and shooting as well. Especially if they're charging something like fiends, they can shoot it and then finish it off in combat, or shoot a lesser unit, like a unit of flesh hounds to death, and then charge a unit of fiends and mess them up. So yeah, like it's just a very versatile unit that's incredibly tough, especially one phase of the game. But in general, is also just a pain in the butt to deal with. Now, a character you'll generally see in them, and probably the best option they can have, is the Blade Champion. So the Blade Champion has a once per game ability that his unit can advance and charge in a turn. So that just allows them to play passively behind terrain, basically continue to threat the middle, and then just boom, come out. Especially if they use it on multiple or all their units in one go. If they've got 2 units with the Blade Champion in it, or 3 units. Now the Blade Champion can attach to the Guardians as well, which are a decent unit, and we'll look at them in a minute. But the Wardens, I think, is where they are best suited. They also allow their unit to reroll charges, which in general is good, and then obviously pairs incredibly well with their once per game advance and charge. So it means that they are less likely to waste it. And then they have 3 different combat profiles, because they basically have different stances with their sword in combat. So they can rock 6 precision attacks at strength 7 -2/2 damage, which against us isn't like, we don't really run a lot of little characters. Most of our little characters are not very good. Really, the only ones you'll see will be Flux Masters or Blood Masters, maybe. But yeah, but it's still a good profile. Strength 7 -2/2 damage, 6 attacks. It's still pretty decent if they're hitting fiends, if they're hitting blood crushers. It's a good profile to have. They can either then go with 9 sustained hit 1 attacks at strength 5 -1/1 damage. So not bad if they're hitting, again, smaller things, flesh hounds or even pink horrors to an extent, because of the rest of the unit having attacks as well. But it also means they can hit, more horde-like units or things like guardsmen and stuff. Or they can go with 6. I don't think it's 6. I actually think it's 5 Devilwind attacks. So I think I've got that wrong. I'm pretty sure it's 5 Devilwind attacks at strength 6 -3/3 damage. So again, can be scary. Very scary, especially into our things like flamers and screamers. So yeah, very, very nasty little combination they can have there. They could also take Trajan Valorous, who is like their big names character. He's like the main character for Custodes. And he basically gives the unit he's attached to. He allows that unit to ignore modifiers to their weapon skill, ballistic skill, and hit rolls. So that's quite nasty, considering I think our best defense against Custodes is our negative buffs, Nurglings, Fiends, Keepers. So yeah, that's quite nasty. He also has like a once per game either knocking his, I think it's strength 10, 3 damage, normally 6 attack weapon. He makes it 12 attacks in combat, or he can get a 2-up in 1 for 1 phase of the game, which again has screwed me over on Assassinate before. So yeah, he's also someone you'll probably see. But yeah, Warden's definitely the unit to watch for. That's, in my opinion, their best unit. Then we have the Custodian Guard, which is like their main battle line unit. I think it might be their only battle line unit. But again, a unit you will see. And again, toughen 6, 3 wounds, 2-up armor, 4-up invuln, standard Custodian profile. Again, the standard 5 attacks at strength 7 -2/2 damage with the spear. All these guys can take a sword and shield instead, and the sword attacks is 5 attacks at strength 6 -1/2 damage. So obviously nowhere near as good. But the shield does give them +1 wound. So now they have 4 wounds instead of 3 wounds, which is a bit of a nasty little breakpoint, because I think our keepers are very good into Custodes, generally. And now shields making them have 4 wounds is really annoying. Especially if you've got Bloodthirsters and you're rolling 1s on that damage. Again, really annoying. And it's a good way around our Bloodthirsters if we're sweeping and we've got Argath and we don't have any Ren Masters. We do have a Ren Master, but we only have 1. So we're only going to have 3 damage sweeps. If we have 2 Ren Masters, then we can kind of get around that. But yeah, so it's annoying. And again, just like the Custodian Guard, they get OC 3 on their bodies if they take a Vexilla. Unlike the guard, they drop their combat weapon. I can't remember if the wardens still keep their combat weapon with the Vexilla or they have to drop it. But these guys do drop their combat weapon. They get a Misericordia instead, which is a knife, which is, meh. But they do get to have a shield with it. So that guy will have 4 wounds. Again, annoying. And then their ability, their unit ability, they get to reroll wound rolls of a 1. Unless the unit themselves, not us, but their unit is on an objective that they control, and then they get to reroll all wounds instead. Now, a way around that is basically if they're going to be charging onto an objective, say we've got some great demons, try and pack the OC on it so they don't get to reroll all those wound rolls. But yeah, that's pretty annoying. And then they get a once per game shoot again. So they're throwing out. I don't think I didn't put their shooting profile on here, but again, they've got basically either 2 shots at 24-inch range at strength 4 -1/2 damage, or 2 shots at 12-inch range, which I believe are pistol at strength 4 -1/2 damage, and that's if they have the swords, or the longer range if they have the spears. Now, a good character, again, you can attach Blade Champions to this unit, it's still decent. You can attach Valorian to this, Trajan Valoris to this unit, it's still good, but Inquisitor Druxus, she's an Inquisitor, so she comes from the Imperial Agents book, but she can join these units because of rules and stuff. She's good, and she is a combination that you will see a lot still. So she's a T3, 4 wound, 3 up armor, 5 up invuln character. She's basically like a sister's character profile. Now, I think it's their movement phase, she can basically choose to roll a dice. On a 1, her unit will take the 3 mortal wounds, but on a 2+, she gives her unit 18-inch lone up. Now that's good, obviously against us, unless we've got a Lord of Change or Soul Grinders or Skull Cannons, it doesn't really matter because our shooting is generally then 18 or less. But that's pretty good into things like Guard, Tau, etc., long range firepower. So that's something to watch out for if you are rocking Lords of Changes and Soul Grinders. Remember, she can do that, but it isn't something that they will just pop on you in your turn. They have to do it in their turn, so you'll know about it. And then she's actually not that bad with shooting. Like, she's got 4 shots of strength, 4, 2 damage, anti-infantry 4+, assault and devastating wounds. So, against infantry, so against our flamers, playbearers, pink horrors, demonettes, bloodletters, lone op character, the changeling and the mask. She'll be doing dev wounds on 4+, and they are 2 damage each, so that hurts. And then she has 6 shots of strength 6, 2 damage, psychic, and sustain 2. So again, pretty decent. She can definitely down our 3-man units on her own with some good rolls. The weakness to her shots is the fact that they are 0 AP. But against us, it doesn't matter. Unless it's Bellicon, he's getting a little bit of a cover save, or a Bloodthirster or Scarbrand, they might get a 3-up cover save. Woo. But yes, again, generally, it doesn't matter against us. So, yeah, this is generally something you will see in every Custodian list, a Custodian Guard squad that will have Draxus in it, and 2 to 3 Warden squads. 2 to 3 of them will have a Blade Champion. Maybe one of them might have Trajan Valoris. Yeah. And then 2 more key units they've got is the Caladius Grav Tank. So the Caladius Grav Tank and the Venatari, these are both Forge World units, but they get to use their Forge World unit because their roster of units is not that large, and they've got as many normal units as they do like Forge World options. So they still get most of their options. I don't know if they still get the Dreadnoughts. You don't see them anymore. But the Caladius Grav Tank is a big tank. So it is T11, 14 wounds, 2 up armor, 5 up invuln, not 4 up, which is good. That's good for us. and OC4. So it's got a good amount of OC on it, but our big guys will be able to out OC it on an objective if nothing else is on it. So it has 2 top shooting guns, and its special ability basically gives either option lethals against certain targets. So for me, or for us, the scariest option is I can't remember what you call it, the Arachnus, whatever. Basically, it's the big double twin linked las cannon thing. And it's 4 shots that are strength 12 minus 3 d6 plus 2 damage, twin linked, and like we said with their ability, this will gain lethals against monsters and vehicles. So this scares the living bejesus out of our big stuff. The Great Unclean One might look at it a little bit and go, nah, I don't care. But even upkeepers don't like this. Yeah, this is scary. This also hurts Blood Crushers, Soul Grinders, etc., etc. Or they can go for 4 shots, and again, that is 48-inch range. The other one, which is more like a kind of auto cannon thing, is 4 shots, again 48-inch range, but in 24 inches, it'll have 8 shots. Strength 10, minus 1, 3 damage, twin linked, and it does get lethal hits against non-monster vehicles, so everything else, which will be, again, our Blood Crushers, our Fiends, our troops, everything else that isn't a big monster. And then it also has like kind of like a pseudo heavy bolter. 3 shots of strength 6 minus 1, 1 damage, sustained 1. You don't really care about those shots, but they're there. So yeah, this is definitely something to watch out for. Be'lakor will be your best friend when they've got 2 to 3 of these things. Again, in my since the Codex 4 games against Custodes, I played against 2. One list that had 1 list that had none, and 2 lists that had 2. And they hurt. Like, I let them shoot the Great Unclean One because I wanted to protect a different side with Be'lakor and Keeper and Shalaxi. And I was like, it's the Great Unclean One, he'll be fine. And I think in one round of shooting, I took like 11 wounds off him, which hurt. I didn't roll great, but yeah. So yeah, they definitely hurt. And then you've got the Venatari, which are basically jump guys. And so there are toughness 6, 3 wounds, 2 up armor, 4 up in 1, OC2, standard Custodes stuff. But they do have a 12-inch move with fly, so they're like the fastest Custodes unit. They can fall back, shoot, and charge, standard, which is something to watch out for. And then they can rapid ingress for free, even if a unit has already done it. So if they've got 2 of these guys, or 2 units of these guys, they can rapid ingress 1 down for free, rapid ingress another 1 down for free, because it's whenever the unit is targeted with rapid ingress, it costs 0 CP, and then they can still use it even if another unit has already been targeted with that stratagem. So definitely something to watch out for. I've been hit by this recently. They brought in a unit of Custodian Guards and Widraxus down, and then they also brought in the Venatari behind walls, and then they came out. Luckily enough, Shalaxi and the Keeper just laughed at them and ripped them all off the board in his turn. Thanks to a little bit of luck, but still. But yes, so definitely a unit to watch out for. It is one of their fastest options and versatile because you can't even tag it up and then hold it down because it can just fall back, shoot, and charge. And then these guys come with the spear, 5 attacks, strength 7, minus 2, 2 damage, or 4 shots, strength 4, minus 1, 2 damage. Or they can swap out for like a pistol, which I think is similar profile, and then they get a shield, which gives them +1 wound. I think the spears is their better option. Speaking to a few Custodes players, if they're running them, they generally run them with the spears. So we're going to look at the 2 better of the detachments, the ones that you're most likely to see. So the first one will be Shield Host. So Shield Host is very focused on Custodes themselves. The detachment rule is whenever a unit, fights in combat, when it's making a unit fights in combat that has the Katah special rule. So again, it will be the actual Custodes units, the golden guys themselves. Anytime they make a hit roll, they score a critical hit on a 5+. So this is incredibly scary because it now means those 5 strength 7 minus 2 2 damage attacks are hitting on 2s and wounding on 5s to hit and then 5s to wound against our big monsters. Or getting sustained 1 on 5s to hit against anything like the other stuff that they don't want to be forcing more wounds through on. So yeah, that's scary. That's incredibly scary. And definitely something to watch out for because now even our tougher monsters, they can just overwhelm with this, and I've been hit with this. Got lucky, can't lie, and my opponent didn't roll that many 5-ups, but I've also got hit with it, and my opponent rolled a crap ton of 5s, and I just lose a monster, and it's scary. They've not really got much in the way of scary enhancements when it comes to us. They've got one that I tend to see a lot when I look at Custodes list, which is they ignore card from a unit. Doesn't matter for us. The other one, they get to redeploy, I think it's 2 units, which is okay, and I didn't include it here. I probably should have, but that's probably the one that we have to worry about the most. The others affect a character. It's not really anything to really worth going into, but they've got a few key stratagems. So they have this one that used to be a lot better, and it used to be fights first if the unit was on an objective, which used to really cause issues, but instead it has changed. So if a Custodes unit is on an objective that they control, that's important. So if you charge enough OC onto it and take it off them, they can't use this. They have to control the unit, control the objective that the infantry unit is on to be able to do this. That infantry unit is -1 to hit. That is potentially annoying, because if we're charging it in with bloodthirsters and blood crushers, we're hitting on 4s and 5s with the blood crusher. Though obviously +1 to hit from the bloodthirster is nice. So actually, that's a bad example because bloodthirsters have +1 to hit in an aura. But a Keeper of Secrets don't like this. Ground Cleaners don't like this. Bellicor doesn't like this. Yeah, so it's something to think about. Is annoying. They can also get +1 attack in combat for a Custodes unit that is under starting strength, or +2 attacks if the unit is under half strength. So again, if you've got a unit that's in ongoing combat, it's your turn, so they're going to get the fight before you, and you've done a number on that unit in previous turns. Rocking this for 2 extra attacks might be the difference between them actually killing something. For example, if you've got, I don't know, a Keeper of Secrets in combat with a unit of guys with spears, and you've slowly been killing them, and they've only got like 3, like the unit started with 5 guys and a character, and there's only 2 guys left, but your keeper's on like 5 wounds, and they're getting the fight before you, so they're using this. They get 2 extra attacks each, so those guys now have like 7 attacks. Could be the difference, and then they roll loads of 5-ups on the crits, so they're getting loads of lethals. That could kill your keeper. So again, something to think about. When you come to your movement phase, maybe it's worth it just falling back, because they can proc this and potentially kill her, or kill the unit you're in combat with. It could be anything. They have got fullback shoot and charge as well in a strap, so again, it's harder to pin them down. Tagging them with loads of stuff or tougher stuff almost can mean nothing, because they can just fullback shoot and charge. And again, it will be something they do a lot to avoid being hit first. So for example, you charge a keeper in, she does stuff to them in their turn, in your turn, they fight back, and then to stop that keeper from being able to hit them first, they'll fall back, they'll shoot, and then they'll charge back in, and then their gains fights first. And then they've also got sticky objective for a battle line unit in the movement phase. So it's not in the command phase like a lot of these strats are, but it is only for their battle line unit, so it's only the custodian guard. But yes, sticky objectives is good, of course. And then we've got the Talons of the Emperor, which I believe is the more popular detachment, though I think Shield Host is better, maybe from the point of view of those those lethal 5s. Yeah. This one is focused on the kind of teamwork between the Custodian units and the Anathema Psychana unit. So your Golden Boys and your Sisters of Silence. So the detachment rule is while a Custodes unit is within 6 inches of an Anathema Psychana unit, they get +1 to hit. They hit on 2s anyway, but it now means they're just cancelling out those any potential -1 auras, which again is quite horrible for us because we like our -1 to hit auras or just our -1 to hit in general. So yeah, this is not good. I mean, it's very good. It's not good for us. And then while a Anathema Psychana unit is within 6 inches of a Custodes unit, they gain a 5-up for no pain against attacks with mortals or just mortals in general, and psychic attacks. So again, a lot of our shooting is psychic from our big guys. Rotigus is psychic in combat as well, which is scary. So is Lord of Change. And then again, we do a lot of devs as well. And again, they get 5-up for no pain against that. So Actually, this is also quite hard to deal with. I can't lie. Now they do have a couple key enhancements. So one of them gives them, oh, it goes in the bearer's unit, and once per turn, blanker damage. That could be the potential between killing all the guys in a unit and not killing all the guys in a unit, or the potential between taking an objective off your opponent. Say you've managed to kill 3 out of 5 custodians, and they've got the character plus 2 guys in the squad, killing another guy because you've got one more failed save, and that means you take it with your greater demon. They can just blank it, keep the extra OC, and now you don't take it off them. They get the squad points for it, etc., etc. They could potentially stop something like overwhelming force with this if they stop the last guy from dying or the character himself from dying, or storm hostile objective by taking it off your opponent. So yeah, that can be annoying. And then they've got another enhancement, which is -1 to hit versus the bearer's unit if the attacking model is within 12 inches. So if we are in combat, obviously we're within 12 inches, and this affects, it just says an attack and the attacking unit, doesn't specify shooting or combat, so therefore it will be both. So basically that unit will be -1 to hit in combat, and then also -1 to hit if we're shooting it at close range, which generally we're going to be. So again, 2 enhancements that I think you'll probably see and can be annoying. Key stratagems. So pretty much all these stratagems, I think all 6 of them work the same way. They affect 2 units, but one of the unit has to be a Psychana unit, but not both. So basically, 1 Custodia unit, 1 Anathema Psychana unit. And then both of these units will gain benefits or whatever. So one of them is a 6-inch reactive move. It works the same as the others do. So if an enemy unit finishes with 9 inches of, I think it has to be with both of those units, not just one of them. But I could be wrong. I should really double check that, because that is actually potentially pretty big. Because if it's just one unit, then you can kind of get around that by just finishing a 9-inch move within 9 inches of one of them, but not both of them. But if it's only one of them, then there is no way around it, like with normal movement. So let's just quickly check the stratagems. What one is the reactive move? It's that one. Ends a normal move, advance, or fall back move. Up to 2 custodian units from your army that are within 9 inches of that unit. So the way around it is either deep strike, because when you come in from reserves, you class as starting a normal move but not ending a normal move, so therefore it won't trigger this, because this is triggered by when a normal move is started, but when a normal move, fallback, or advance roll is ended, within 9 inches of at least one of these units, then they can make that reactive move. So deep strike gets around it, but the way I read it is if you finish, so for example, you've got the Psychana unit and you've got the Custodia unit, you want to charge Blood Crushers in, you get within, say, 6 of the Psychana unit, but you're outside of 9 of the Custodia unit, they don't get to do it. So that's another way around it, which is good. They can also get +1 to wound for, again, 2 of these units, 1 Psychana, 1 Custodia's unit, against a target that is under starting strength. So that's really good. They can gang up on the big guys, and that hurts. So yeah, that's one to watch out for again. 1 Psychana unit, 1 Custodia's unit within 6 inches of it. Shooting attacks have to. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm trying to even read my own bit there. So basically, again, a good way to get around this attachment is by trying to kill the either one or other of the units, so killing the Custodes units or killing the sister units. Sister units are obviously weaker, mostly. But against us, this won't be as big. Though actually saying that, it definitely could be. So they use a stratagem on a Psychana unit, and if there's a Custodes unit within 6 inches of it, they can basically redirect the shooting that targets that unit at a Custodes unit within 6 inches. Now, that again is a good way to keep it alive, especially if it's a Warden unit and they decide to pop the 4 up for no pain. We haven't got tons and tons of shooting generally, so this is actually a bit annoying, because obviously we've got like Bellacore shots, Keeper's shots, Shalaxi shots, Flamers from your Bloodthirsters, Scarbrand, Grant and Clean One. You might have the Lord of Change, Soul Grinders, but again, not enough that you're going to really wreck your way through a Custodes unit most of the time. and that can keep the Sarkana unit alive. Yeah, so that's a good way for them to keep it alive, keep the units alive. So again, be aware of that if you're trying to kill the unit of Sarkana first. So then you can kind of kill the benefits for another unit. They can kind of spread the damage across. And then they can do fallback, shoot, and charge for 2 units. Again, 1 Sarkana, 1 Custodes unit if they're within 6 inches of each other. So again, more fallback, shoot, and charging. They do this a lot. So these are definitely the 2 detachments to watch out for. Both have different uses, but also very good against us. The Talons are very capable of kind of mitigating some of our strengths, which is having a lot of, negatives to hit. In Nurglings, Fiends, Keepers, even Demon Princes on foot to an extent. With Stealth, Bellacore Stealth as well, by just getting +1 to hit. The other thing is the 5 for no pain for the Sarkana units. Again, we rely on a good amount of dev wounds and stuff like that. Psychic shooting. So again, not just can they harm one unit of Sarkanas off and have the shooting that targets them go into a unit of Custodes instead, but then also they can have a 5 for no pain on their Sarkana units against Psychic and Mortals, which again a lot of our shooting is or does. And then the shield host is just very good at killing us in general. Lethals on 5s against our monsters at 2 damage hurts. Sustained on 5s against our smaller stuff with 5 attacks each as 2 damage hurts. So yeah, not great. So some of the best units we have to go into Custodes with. Shalaxi is very good because again, as you can see, they like to attach characters to their units. It makes their units better. Wardens, which are one of their key units, will have characters in. Shalaxi is our best killing tool completely. She's got a 6 attacks, strength 14, knocking them to invuns at DC +2 damage, re-rolling with character units, monsters and vehicles. On all of that, same with her 4 strength 6 -2, 3 damage dev wound attacks from her claws. Reapers, again, they're just putting out a lot of 3 damage attacks. So of course they don't like the shield dudes, but they can kill Wardens quite nicely, especially if they haven't got a 4 for no pain. But again, have a decent profile to kill Custodes with. Fiends and Nurglings are good because this is a very combat heavy army, so -1 to hits all over the place are nice, even though they normally hit on 2s. But Talons kind of, mitigate them a little bit, hence why you've got to make sure you're trying to kill the tag up units that they have. Blood Crushers, go in, do your mortals, and then hopefully hit them hard. Pair them with Rem Masters, so now your swords are 3 attacks. If you can then get a couple Rem Masters, your horns will be 3 attacks as well. 3 damage. Your swords will be 3 damage with the Rem Master, 4 damage with 2. So now it's potentially a better way to get through not just the shields, but if they proc the Feel No Pains from the Warden, sorry. Mine went blank there. But then of course, the shield hosts have a 4 for no pain strat, which I don't. Did I talk about the 4 for no pain strat in the shield host? I didn't. Okay. The shield hosts have a 4+ for no pain strat against mortals. I think it's just mortal wounds, which will obviously be dev wounds as well. So, that is something you've got to watch out for. Again, if they proc it in the shooting phase to combat the dev wounds, if they do it, like if they're preparing to defend against blood crushers, again, they'll have to be careful and they'll probably proc that, which could blunt your blood crushers a lot. Maybe having 2 units of blood crushers going into 1 unit is a good way to get through that. But having 4 for no pains against the mortals and then 4 for no pains in the fight phase is hard to deal with for blood crushers. And then Bloodthirsters and Scarbrand. Scarbrand is 6 damage, so he's very good at just ignoring for no pain most of the time because average they're going to still fail on 3 wounds and die. Bloodthirsters with Red Masters can be 3 damage on their swings. They're hitting on 2s, they're wounding on 2s. Very good at killing Custodes. So definitely some very key units. Bellacore as well, if they're rocking Caladiuses, because he can keep you safe outside of within 18 inches. Yeah, and then Bellacore is not bad as well, going in and picking characters out. He's quite good at doing that. So what's kind of the best way we need to play into them? I'm going to tell you how I play into them, and that's ganging up on them because they're quite tough. And those 4-up invuns, the Custode players are very similar to us in the fact that, we will either make all the invuns, we'll roll all the 4-ups, and it's a bad time for our opponent, but we love it, or we just don't make 4-up invuns and we hate it, but our opponents love it. Custodes did the same thing, and to me, it's more feels bad when they do it because it's horrible. But yes, so you want to gang up on their units, team up, team your greater demons up, team your punchy like fiends or blood crushers with a greater demon or multiple of those units, and just trying to then like throw your shooting into a unit, especially wardens, and then teaming up with 2 units and smashing into it and picking them up in spots at a time. You want to try and force them to split their assets. Again, they're elite, so they've not got all the units in the world. And by having, say, 2 greater demons on one side, 2 greater demons on another side, you're tagging into things and beating things up. You're forcing them to split them units up. The units are very efficient anyway, but if they're having 2 units go into 2 greater demons on an objective, you're in trouble. But by splitting them up, you have better chances of survival. If they're running into your smaller stuff, is going to die, probably. They're very good at killing our smaller stuff. You want to force them to rescreen your deep strike threat, because again, they're more elite, so if they're keeping units back to screen, that's going to be less threats coming forward. If they're pushing more threats forward, they're going to have less less assets to screen with, which will give us more dropping space. And again, if they're doing the whole Talons of the Emperor and they're trying to team up their Psychana units and their Custodia units, they're going to want to make sure that the Psychana units are in a spot to still be able to give out, the benefits to the Custodia units, which again will force them to spread out a bit, which could underutilize their damage or force them to leave gaps. So forcing them to kind of split up and then always having threats in deep strike, always making sure you're highlighting the threat of the up and down, and not letting them tag up all your key units in one go is very important. Screen and move block, that's something you can say for any game, any matchup, to be honest. But again, an example, I charged into a unit on an objective with some key units, Shalaxi and I think Be'lakor. I used a unit of Flesh Hounds, and you can move them or you can drop them 3-inch deep strike, screen them out. And this unit was an inch off a wall, so I dropped 2 inches back. And if the unit moves normally, I think because they couldn't get within, obviously they can't get within an inch of the Flesh Hounds, and because of their bases, they couldn't actually get to the other side of the wall. So a charge through to the other side onto my big monsters was like 10 inches or 11 inches. And it meant even if they were to use their advance and charge, they would have to go round, which would still not be a great. It still was like a 9-inch charge or something. And even though they get the free reroll, it's still not ideal. So, again, they've got, while their resources are pretty good, they can be very limited. So by controlling, you're going to pick a unit, you're going to gang up on it, you're going to beat it into the ground, and then you're going to prevent those other units from being able to pick on your unit, so you can keep picking, rather than picking and losing. And then just try and overwhelm them with saves and mortals, because yes, they've got good toughness, yes, they've got good saves and invuns, but if you're throwing so many good attacks at them, they will fail. Like I said, sweeping with Bloodthirsters and Ren Master buffs is very good. Having multiple big guys in a round of combat is going to hurt them. Shalaxi and a Keeper is a lot of damage 3 or better attacks for them to deal with, and throwing a lot of Death Wound shots at them or whatever is going to cause them issues. So again, backing up the ganging up thing, overwhelm them part at a time, and try not to let yourself get isolated, because if you isolate your monsters, they will pick on them and kill them easy. If you're forcing them to split assets up, that's when it starts to benefit you. So their biggest weakness, and this is the last part, again, they can be quite elite in most of their builds, so use that to your advantage. Split them up like we've said. Try and isolate them as much as you can. Outside of the Blade Champion, with their once per game advance and charge, they're not that fast. Like Venatari obviously move 12, and Palladius move a little bit, but they're generally 6-inch movers. They don't have dedicated transports. I don't know if any of like the Force World Flyers do dedicated transport. They might do, but you don't really see them. So and obviously they can deep strike mostly, but you can screen that out. And you can try and protect against rapid ingress. But yes, the Venatari is where the speed is coming from. Their bikes, the Dawn Eagle jet bikes, which we haven't mentioned, have speed on them, but they're not very good. So you don't really see them a lot at the moment, thankfully, because when they are good, they are really, really annoying. And then, yes, they've got like a lot of 2 damage shots, so they definitely threaten our horrors and our flesh hounds, plate bearers, fiends, etc., etc. But they don't really threaten the big guys, apart from obviously the Caladius. But then they will chip down. But like I said, you're not looking at loads and loads and loads of high damage shooting. So they're really relying on that combat to bring those big guys down. And, in Shield Host, lethals and 5 hurts. In the Talons, they've still got some good like plus on the wound and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like, again, ganging up, having multiple big threats in an area and isolating them so they're not really going to get to target you with more than 1 unit at a time. Movie blocking, screening is very good for this. And you're just basically forcing them to have to throw as many of their assets into certain parts of the board, which is going to starve other areas of the board, etc., etc. So just trying to isolate them, beat them down 1 point at a time, and don't let yourself get isolated, basically. So yeah, that is really the long and short of it. It's enough of a deep dive, I think, to give you an idea of the matchup. And we could definitely go deeper, but yeah, these are basically, running for the faction where they are quite strong against us, and then the way I like to play into them and try and beat them, and it generally is quite good and works very well. Custodians are not top of the meta at the moment, but they are an army that when they get a little bit buffed to an extent, they can just go the complete opposite way, and it's really annoying from GW. But still, I think Custodians are a bit of an annoying matchup for us. I have people say it's a horrible matchup for them, and I can see why. I can definitely see why. Like I said, since the Codex come out, those 4 games, I've won them, and I mean, there's been a little bit. Like I had 1 game where I won by a point, but I can put that down to a little bit on cards going a bit awry, some 4-up-win runs being a bit tanky, but again, that happens. You've got to think about that. But generally, I do find it's not the hardest matchup right now, but I really hate them. Like I always think about that matchup no matter what. But again, they can be a counter to us. I think Shield Host is horrible against our big guys. The Talons a good counter for what I would say is normally a lot of our good ways to kind of go against them with our minuses and stuff like that. And they can defend against a lot of our psychic and dev wound stuff. And they are very efficient at killing our stuff. Our small stuff dies in droves to them. Like their shooting is just I've always found their shooting to be very good into our smaller stuff. And their combat can be very horrible into our bigger stuff. And then of course Caladius are scary. But yeah, so if there's anything else you think I missed that maybe you wanted to see more, we can always do part 2s of these videos. To be honest, we'll probably update them as time goes on because the game changes, factions change, hence why we're trying to really focus on the codex itself. But if we were to maybe get detachments sometime in the near future, maybe that's something to come back and visit. What detachments could be better into each of the in each of these factions? In this case, would a Slaaneshi faction detachment be better into Custodes or a Khorne detachment, etc., etc.? Not that I'm hinting at anything, because I'm definitely not. I'm 100% not hinting at a codex. I can promise you that one. But yes, so hopefully you were able to get something from this. Maybe you struggle with the Custodian matchup, and this could give you maybe a little bit of a leg up on that. Or maybe just in general, you don't really know Custodians that well because you don't really play into them a lot in your local meta or the events you go to. So this can kind of give you an idea. So when you do eventually run into them, you can kind of, come back to this video and be like, okay, like I can at least have an idea of what to watch out for. And that's what these type of videos are going to be for, to either help you in those matchups you're struggling in, or help you in those matchups that you just don't know because you don't play into them. So yeah. Like we said at the beginning of the video, if you really like this content, leave a like and subscribe. It's massively appreciated and helps us out hugely. And then if you want to further support us and you really love the content, then consider becoming a true denizen for the YouTube memberships with some extra benefits. And keep up to date with Facebook and Instagram to see everything True Demon Lord, whether it be tournament updates or channel uploads, etc., etc. So thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you all in the next one.